Okay, so welcome to Unit 4, Lesson 5, or 4.5 video notes. The title of this lesson is called Graphing Standard Form Equations. Okay, so before we begin, you should have the video notes in front of you. It looks like this. And take this time to write your name, date, period. Now, one thing I want you to notice is looking at the paper. On the first page, it starts with a notes and example 1. Now, if you flip to the other side, at the top, it says example 3. So this paper, the notes jumps from example 1 to example 3. I am sorry, that's my mistake. I forgot example 2. So for this, to skip example number 2, we're just going to go from example 1 to example 3. Okay, so don't be confused. All right, so in this video lesson, we are going to graph lines by using what's called a standard form. That's what we're going to use, okay? Now, standard form is different from what we previously have done. For example, we've done y equals mx plus b, and this was called a slope-intercept form, if you remember. And if you remember why it's called slope-intercept form, that's because you have m, the slope, and b was the y-intercept, right? You had a slope and an intercept. So that's why it was called a slope-intercept form. But in this lesson, you are going to be doing what's called a standard form. And standard form is another linear equation that's written as ax plus by equals c. A and b are both numbers. C will also be a number. However, a and b can never be 0. Remember that. A and b can never be 0. Because if they're 0, then 0 times x is 0. And 0 times y is 0. You won't have any x or y. And if you look at the example, that's what standard form looks like. You have negative 2x plus 3y equals negative 6. So that means A is negative 2, and B is positive 3. C is negative 6. That is a standard form. And standard form and slope-intercept form, they're different because if you have slope-intercept form, y equals 3x plus, 6, and a standard form 2x plus 3y equals 6. Okay, so if you look at it, you notice that all the variables are on one side and number is by itself. So you have x and y and number alone. Whereas slope-intercept form, you have y and x. So you have variables on both sides, and a number with the variable. Standard form always have variables on one side and number by itself. That's the difference. Okay. Now, let's go back to example 1. It says graph negative 2x plus 3y equals negative 6. There are actually 2 ways to do it. One is something we've already done. Let me go back. One thing we've done, and please do not write this. Don't write this. You can take notes for extra credit. Make sure you write it on a separate paper and staple to it, okay? So you can graph this in 2 ways. One is something you've done already. You change this to y equals mx plus b. Write it in y equals mx plus b, which means you need to get the y by itself, just like the way you did before when we isolate the y. So then if you have negative 2x plus 3y equals negative 6, you need y by itself, so you need to move that 2x, so add 2x both sides. And you have 3y is equal to negative 6 plus 2x. And then you divide both sides by 3, and here you divide everything by 3. So then you have y is equal to negative 2 plus 2 over 3x. And you can rewrite it as, you can switch the order, y equals 2 over 3x minus 2, which is in slope-intercept form. So on the graph, you find the y-intercept, you use the slope to find the next point. That is one method. That's what we learned. That's what we did before. Okay? And starting today, we're going to do it a little differently. So we're going to learn the second method. And with standard form, it's easier if you find the intercepts. So the second technique I want to teach you in this lesson is to use x-intercepts and y-intercepts. So let's see what that technique is all about. Remember that when we find x-intercepts, it looks like something, 0, because y is 0. And y-intercept is when x is 0, so it's 0, a number. Now we're going to use this information to find the intercepts from this graph. So first, let's find the x-intercept, because again, with standard form, you can graph it by finding the intercepts. To find the x-intercept, we make y equals 0. So make y equals 0, because x-intercept is when y is 0. Then you would have negative 2x plus 3 times 0 equals negative 6. And here's the cool thing about it. So watch this. What's cool is that this whole piece right here, 3 times 0, cancels out, because anything times 0 is 0, right? So I would get negative 2x is equal to negative 6. And divide both sides by negative 2 to get x alone. And x is equal to negative 6 over negative 2, which is positive 3. So the x-intercept for this equation is 3. And if you want to write that as a point, it would be 3, 0. So that is one point we found. Okay, and then the next part would be to find the y-intercept. Y-intercept was when x is 0, so let's make x 0. And if you do that, it would be negative 2 times 0 in this equation plus 3y equals negative 6. And again, negative 2 times 0 is 0, cancels out, so you're only left with 3y is equal to negative 6. And we divide both sides by 3 to get y by itself, and y is equal to negative 2. So the y-intercept here is negative 2. So you found the x-intercept and the y-intercept. And now we can plot the x-intercept and y-intercept. If you want to do it on your own, you may do that. Just pause the video and plot the points, draw the line, and just come back to the video to check your work, okay? Otherwise, you can follow along with me. So let's divide this by labeling the axes. So this would be the x-axis, and this with the vertical line is the y-axis. And just plot the points. X-intercept 3, 0. So x is 3, y is 0. Go to 3, 1, 2, 3. And that is the x-intercept, right? And then I'm going to use blue for y-intercept. Y-intercept is 0, negative 2. Go to the y-axis down to negative 2, 1, 2. And that should be at negative 2. Okay, so connect the dots, draw a line, and here it is. The y-intercept is -2, x-intercept is 3. Just draw a line through. Make sure you label the line, and that is it. So again, with standard form, just find the x-intercept, y-intercept, plot them, connect them, and you're done. Good. All right, let's check out the next example. This one is very similar, so let's do it again. If you want to, you can pause this and try it on your own. Then you are more than welcome to do so. Remember, when you're doing this, that x-intercept is when y is 0 and y-intercept is when x is 0. Okay, so you can try it on your own. All right, for those of you who are following along, again, we're going to find intercepts. So let's cover that over. Let's do the x-intercept first. X-intercept is when y is 0. So let's make y 0. Then you would have x plus 3 times 0 is -3. And again, anything times a 0 is 0. It cancels out. So x is equal to -3. That's it. So the x-intercept will be -3. And moving on to the y-intercept. Y-intercept this time is when x is 0. No. Oh yes, y-intercept is when x is 0. So make x 0, you would have 0 plus 3y is equal to -3, which is just 3y equals -3. Divide both sides by 3, and y is equal to -1. So the y-intercept here is now -1. And again, we're going to graph this. So label the axes. You have x-axis, then you have the y-axis. I'm going to start by plotting the x-intercept at -3. So go to the x-axis, and that'll be -1, -2, -3. And then I'm going to use purple, light purple, to find the y-intercept, which is 0, -1 down here on the y-axis. Then connect. There you go. I drew the line, drew arrows going both sides, and I labeled the line with the equation x plus 3y equals -3. That's it. So, for those of you who done it on your own, please check your work. If it's wrong, make sure you go back and fix it. Okay. So, now jumping to example 3, real life application. It says you have $6 to spend on apples and bananas. You have $6 and you want to buy apples and bananas. Now, part A, it says graph the equation 1.5x plus 0.6y equals 6, where x is a number of pounds of apples and y is a number of pounds of bananas. So, in this problem, even though there are decimals in this standard form equation, even though there's decimal, the technique is exactly the same. So maybe this time you need a calculator. So grab a calculator if you need it. Then pause the video to try graphing it on your own. If you want to find the x-intercepts with me, then you can continue with me. But I really would like you to try this problem, part A, on your own. Okay? So, for those of you who are coming along with me, we're going to start with part A. And again, standard form, you want to find the x-intercepts and the y-intercepts. And I'm going to start by finding the y-intercept, which is when y is 0. So you have 1.5x plus 0.6 times 0 equals 6. And that cancels out. So 1.5x equals 6. Divide both sides by 1.5 to find x. And 6 divided by 1.5, that's going to give you, if you put in the calculator, a 4. So your x-intercept for this problem, it'll be 4, and 4 x-intercept is when y is 0, so it'll be 4, 0. Then to find the y-intercept, let's make x equals 0. So if x is 0, you would have 1.5 times 0 plus 0.6y equals 6. This cancels. 0.6y is 6. Divide both sides by 0.6 to get y by itself. 6 divided by 0.6. Put that in the calculator, and that gives you 10. So your y-intercept is 10, and how do you write that as a point? That's 0, 10. So you found the x-intercept, and you found the y-intercept. And you're going to graph them. Now, when you graph, here is an important point. Can you have negative number of pounds? No, you can't have a negative pounds. You can't have negative 6 pounds of apples. So for this problem, when you're graphing it, you don't need negative numbers. So you're only going to graph with one quadrant. That means you only need quadrant 1. So when you label the axes, this entire bottom is going to be your x-axis, which represents apples. And the vertical axis, the y-axis, is this whole line, and that represents the bananas. So graph it just like this, and make sure you label the axes here, the number, the grids. There we go. And then we're going to label the x-intercepts. So x-intercept is 4, 0. That's on the x-axis, so right there. And then the y-intercept, that is 0, 10, which is on the y-axis, so you drop the point here. Now, please be careful when you connect the 2 points to draw the lines, okay? For example, let me show you. If you connected the points and drew a line like this, for this problem, it would be wrong. If the line is extending outside of the quadrant like this, going out of space, it is wrong. Because I know I told you the line should be extending out like this, because that's what a line is. For this problem, you can't, because that means this here, the number of bananas, is going to negative, and you can't have negative. So when you draw this line, you have to end it at the x-intercept. So the correct graph should look like this. So it ends at this point here and this point. The line stays in quadrant 1 because your numbers cannot be negative. And make sure you label the equation on the graph. 6y equals 6, and that is the end. That's how you would graph for this problem. Okay, so part B, I'm going to erase some of the work to leave space for me. So let's try to interpret the intercepts for part B. So now, since I have the intercept 4, 0 and y-intercept 0, 10, we need to explain in sentence what they mean. Remember, order pairs, it's x, comma, and y. So for x-intercept, if x is 4, then y means it's 0. And x stands for the number of pounds of apples, and y stands for number of pounds of bananas. So if x is 4, that means you have 4 pounds of apples. And if y is 0, then you have 0 pounds of bananas. As you can see here, 4 pounds of apples, but 0 pounds of bananas. right? So 4 comma 0 means that if you buy how many pounds of apples? X is 4. So if you buy 4 pounds of apples, then you have 0 pounds of bananas, which means you can't buy any bananas. There are no bananas. So then if you buy 4 pounds of apples, then you cannot buy any bananas because that's 0 pounds of bananas. And then the next one is 0 comma 10. What does that mean? If you have x equals 0, if x is 0, that means x is number of pounds of apples, so you have 0 pounds of apples. So if you don't buy any apples, because it's 0 pounds of apples, then you can buy y is 10, so 10 pounds of bananas. And that's what that means. If you don't buy any apples because it's 0 pounds of apples, then you can buy 10 pounds of bananas because y is 10 for this point, where x is 0. And here, when x is 4, y is equal to 0. And that is it. That's the end. If you have any questions, please make sure to write it down and ask me in class next time when I go over this. If you took extra notes, make sure to staple it, turn it in, you'll get extra credit. All right? Good job. Thank you.